sun salutations, we'll try to shift energy. So we will find more vitality. As when we sit at the desk for many hours, sometimes our energy can become stagnant. We can start to feel demotivated, less creative, and probably less inspired. So moving away from the desk can be the best thing that we can do sometimes in order to find more inspiration. So let's start moving and shifting some of that energy. So we'll start together, standing tall. So please take your shoes off today. So we'll find some of that grounding through the feet. Let's all roll the shoulders back, big movement with the arms. We'll find mountain pose for the next few breaths. So rooted through the feet. Let's become aware of the feet by lifting the toes off the floor, spreading the toes wide and bring them back slowly one by one. Now let's close the eyes or gaze down towards the floor. Give the eyes a break, some time to rest here. And imagine you have a band around your ankles and you're trying to push that band away onto the outside. So push the ankles towards the outside and feel the inner rotation, the spiraling in of your inner thighs and the inner rotation of your hips. So the kneecaps up towards the thighs, but keep soft into the knees, no locking. Try to bring that tailbone down and in, so no arching at the lower back. Just keep that natural curve. Draw the navel in and up. Bring the lower ribs in towards the center as you lift the sternum up towards the ceiling, rolling those shoulders back. And bring the shoulder blades closer towards each other here. Chin towards the chest, tall through the crown of the head. Arms extended by the sides of the body, palms facing forward. And let's take 3 inhales here through the nose and 3 exhales through the mouth. Sigh it out. Let go and arrive here 2 more times. Inhale from the belly, lower ribs, collarbones, and from here exhaling deeply. Keep that intensity into the breath. Keep all of those cues from the feet, the ankles, the knees, the thighs, the tailbone, the strength of your core, the opening into the chest, and the softness in the shoulders, the lifting up towards the skies from the crown of the head. Loose tension between the eyebrows. Maybe smile. Beautiful. Now let's start moving here. So maybe you want to do some circles with the wrists first into the arms, just to take some of that pressure off, if you feel it there, into the wrists. And we'll circle the arms, soft bend into the knees as you circle the arms up towards the ceiling. Look up, plug the shoulders into the shoulder sockets here. And lengthen through the sides of the body and the fingers. Exhale, hands together at the heart center, lowering down. 2 more times. Inhale, gather that energy in, make it active. Exhale, palms together to touch, spread those fingers wide. 1 more time. Inhale, up towards the ceiling, lengthen. Exhale, down. Beautiful. Let's bring the hands onto the tops of the thighs. I'll turn to the side. And with the feet in line with the hips, so just as wide as your hips are, we'll bend into the knees, send the hips back, just like if we were sitting on a chair here. And place the palms onto the tops of the thighs, just above the knees here. Roll those shoulders back. Tuck that tailbone in and strong into the core here as you open the chest forward, chin towards the chest here. Strong pose. And we'll do some cat and cows from this pose. So as we inhale, send that sternum even forward, tailbone lifting, arching at the lower back. Exhale to round it through, tailbone coming in, chin towards the chest, navel drawing in. 3 more times, just like this, opening through the collarbones, the sternum, and exhale to round everything through. Let the arms move freely, soft through the elbows here. Push the palms into the tops of the thighs. 1 more time, inhale to open up. Exhale to round it through. Inhale to come to that straight spine. Push into the feet as you exhale. And inhale to come up into your mountain pose. Lift the arms, hands together at the heart center. Let's do together some half sun salutations. So as we inhale, circle the arms up towards the ceiling. Exhale to hinge from the hips, forward fold, bend the knees deeply, palms towards the ground, head down towards the floor. Inhale, halfway lift, legs are straight, place the palms onto the tops of the thighs as you send the elbows back towards the sides of the body. Roll the shoulders back. You can keep a soft bend into the knees. Draw the navel in, grow tall forward through the crown of the head. Forward fold. Trace a line at the back of the legs with your hands as you bend the knees, belly onto the tops of the thighs, crown of the head, drawing heavy towards the floor. Let's inhale here to push into the feet and lift up into your mountain, circling the arms up. Exhale, hands together at the heart center. 2 more times, just like this. Inhale, soft bend in the knees, circle the arms, palms together. Exhale, forward fold, bend the knees. Inhale, halfway lift, trace a line with your hands all the way to the tops of the thighs. Roll those shoulders back, strong through the core. Exhale to fold, hands at the back of the legs, all the way down to the heels, crown of the head heavy, belly resting onto the tops of the thighs. Inhale to push into the feet as you come up, arms up towards the ceiling. Exhale, hands together at the heart center. 1 more time, just shifting that energy. Inhale, circle the arms, palms to touch. Exhale, forward fold, hinge from your hips. Inhale, halfway lift, just trace that line onto the legs, up towards the thighs, palms pressing into the tops of the thighs. Exhale, hands at the back, all the way down towards your heels. Bend those knees, let the belly rest onto the tops of the thighs. Inhale to come and push into the feet as you rise up with a round spine, mountain pose, unfurl. Inhale here, beautiful. Let's find a bit more movement this time into our shoulders as we come to add more to this half sun salutation. So as we inhale, we'll interlace the fingers at the back. Draw the knuckles down and away here. Send that sternum forward. We'll keep the core engaged, so draw the navel in. Inhale here and exhale, hinging from the hips, forward fold. Bend the knees deeply as you bring the arms overhead, crown of the head down towards the floor. You can straighten into the legs if that feels comfortable or it's available to you, but you can also keep the legs bent as much as you need to here. Bending then deeply, breathing. Exhale to let go and bring the hands onto the floor. Or bring the right hand between the
feet in line with the nose, and wrap the left elbow under the right to come and wrap the forearms together here to lift into a eagle pose. Palms can be together or back of the hands. And from here, pushing into the feet, let's inhale with the knees bent to lift up into eagle arms. Exhale to forward fold. 2 more times. Inhale to lift. Push into the feet. Rooted, grounded. Exhale to fold. And this time, pause here into your forward fold. Crown of the head heavy. Inhale to lift back up. And unwrap, unwind, bend into the elbows, cactus the arms, pinch the shoulder blades together, and exhale down, arms by the sides of the body. Let's do it onto the opposite side. So inhaling to dive the arms back, interlace the fingers, maybe the opposite finger on top this time. Tug that tailbone under as you send the chest forward. Roll the shoulders back. Draw the knuckles down and away here. Exhale to bend into the knees. Hinge from the hips as you forward fold. Crown of the head down towards the floor and let the arms come overhead. You don't need to keep the wrists together here, so leave space between the wrists. Breathe deeply, let the crown of the head draw down towards the floor, ground through the feet. Exhale to let go of the interlace of the fingers, bring the hands to the floor. And this time, right elbow coming behind the left. Place the palms together or the back of the hands as you wrap at the forearms. Press into the feet as you inhale to lift up into your mountain. Point the fingers up towards the ceiling, look up. Exhale, fold, bend into the knees. 2 more times. Inhale to lift. Feet rooted. Exhale to fold. 1 more time. Inhale to lift. Point those fingers up, lift the elbows. Exhale, forward fold. Take 1 inhale and 1 exhale here in your eagle arms. And as you exhale, unwrap, unwind, place the palms down to the floor. Push into the feet heavy to round and uncurl the spine up to standing. Roll those shoulders back. Beautiful. From here, we'll do just a bit of movement into the pelvis area, into the hips before we do together what's called a knocking at heaven's door. So really shifting that energy and looking for vibrancy. So with the feet in line with the hips, arms by the sides of the body. You can bring 1 hand to the belly and 1 hand to the lower back just to get a better sensation of the movement. And we'll just start to draw circles with the hips from side to side. Again, so good when we spend time seated just to get some movement here. Those forward folds, again, so good for the lower back to release tension. Make the circles bigger, wider. Don't hesitate to change the direction as well. Welcoming those creaks and cracks. Beautiful. Let's come to center, to a neutral position. And let's do knocking on heaven's door, and that will be our final movement today. So feet a tiny bit wider than the hips. Unlock the knees, so really soft. You can really shake the legs to feel that softness in the knees and into the hips. Arms by the sides of the body. Some of you might know this. So we'll start by moving the arms from side to side, just waving them from side to side. And not locking the knees, so we need softness. Yeah, so
just waving the arms from side to side. And we'll start to move faster. Maybe closing the eyes again. We don't want the judging of the mind to interfere with the pleasure of the movement. So maybe making the movement faster. Keep unlocking the knees. Keep moving those hips. Let the neck move as well. Let the shoulders move freely. And let the landing of your arms by the sides of the body massage those sides of the body. So you can bring them higher towards the upper arms or down towards the bum, the buttocks, the lower back. Start moving faster, faster. And don't forget to breathe. And start to slow down, making those waves smaller until you come to center and to stillness. Closing the eyes, arms extended by the sides of the body. Press into the feet, grounded and supported, lifting through the chest. Feel the energy. Maybe the shift and the sensation of feeling more inspired and unstuck. Feel the breath. Notice the rhythm of the breath. And gently opening the eyes and bringing the hands together, whispering thank you or namaste, and wishing each other a beautiful day. I'll see you tomorrow.
Hello everybody, my name's Catherine Ward and I'm going to be your chair for most of the morning. And welcome to the second day here. I'm sat in my little attic. Thank you very much for Adriana for the yoga session. I nearly spilt my water when I was relaxing with my hands, but what a great way to start a conference. Briefly today, we've got a packed day. Just want to remind you really to be involved, to be present, to chat in the comments, ask lots of questions. We've put this conference on for you. It's a peer support day. So many people, so many businesses, so many organisations and employers want to know how to support people to stay mentally well in the workplace. So please use that day. So first of all, just in 5 minutes, we're going to talk to 6 really inspirational leaders in the city. It's about leadership and communication and lessons learned from 2020 and during COVID. We're going to then have a bit of a panel discussion. So again, I would really encourage you to ask some questions and use this time to just share experiences yourself and stories, because we learn from those and we learn to be better leaders, don't we? There is something around listening and importance of being open and comfortable with our own vulnerability. So again, we can share what we've learned today, but I'd also ask around confidentiality if people do share personal things. We really want to challenge the stigma of mental health as well. So there's a really good opportunity to ask sensitive questions when you don't maybe understand where somebody's coming from too. Later on in session 2, after a break, we're going to meet Juliet Alban-Metcalf. She's a CEO from the Real World Group, and her session will cover how to lead people effectively over the coming months and years. So there's something about looking forward. Reflection by all the participants on the extent which their current leadership approach is likely to have served them well, and those skills to go forward and how we can adapt it. And then just really sort of reflections throughout the day. We've also got some brilliant workshops this afternoon, and I think if I've got the right ones, there's some managing conflict for well-being, when home isn't a safe place, talking organisations' approach to domestic abuse and violence, and being an authentic. Am I still on mute? Can everybody hear me? I've just been told I'm on mute. Am I good? Everybody can hear me fine, that's fine. And then there'll be another break, and there's an introduction to creative team building, get us started with wellbeing strategy. Again, the 10 steps toolkit, we learned from those around how to bring the mindful employer 10 steps into a workplace, and mindfulness for leaders and employers. I think I might need that by the end of my chairing skills. So that's what it is today. I just really want to reflect on leadership. I went to a brilliant session around being an inclusive leader a couple of weeks ago. And leadership is making happen what isn't going to happen anyway. And there's something about managers. Managers is helping to make happen what is supposed to happen anyway. So anybody can be a leader. It isn't just something that you have to do because you're seen in a senior position. So first of all, I think what I'd like to do now is we'll go to our first speaker. And this is Susan G, Group Manager of Occupational Health from Yorkshire Water.
Hello, my name's Susan G and I'm the Occupational Health Manager for Yorkshire Water. I want to talk to you today about my experience of the pandemic and what it's been like working through it. I mean, we've all lived the same experience, but working through it's been really surreal. I think initially for me, the biggest issue was that it was the shock of realising that it was really happening and it was really true that we were going to be locked down. And even then I thought, well, you know, this might last for 4-6 weeks and it won't be such a big deal. It might be quite a nice break. But then when the reality of it hits in terms of how long it was going to go on for and what it would entail, then it became quite a different matter. Professionally, I think it's the first time in my professional career in occupational health that I've ever been faced with the challenge of giving advice which I didn't really know if I could trust myself. So it's the point of somebody saying, well, you've done the risk assessment and these are my health risks and can I go to work? And thinking, well, yeah, I think you can go to work, but I'm not particularly sure if you will be safe. So I have to say that in the end, the anxiety and the weight of the responsibility, at one point, I almost became quite timid and fearful of my own role because I was worried about making the wrong decision about somebody else's family. I mean, you're thinking, you know, this is somebody's mum, or this is somebody's dad, or somebody's brother or sister, or, you know, whatever family member. And, you know, they're putting their trust in me and my professional judgment. So, and then on a personal note, my husband's older and has got some health issues, and my mother's really old. So I didn't really have any choice about having to do things and go about my general day-to-day business. So that was quite a challenge, whilst also thinking about 4,500 people that we've got working at Yorkshire Water. And of course, they're spread all over Yorkshire. And then I came to my own little team of people who, you know, fortunately we had business continuity plans. We enacted them, they worked, it went really well. So that wasn't too bad, but again, for different reasons, you know, they all had different worries and concerns about their own families. And so actually, all in all, at one point, I really, you know, just thought, I just want to go and sit under a rock. I just didn't know what to do. But as the days went on and things settled down and we got into more of a routine, it got a bit easier. But I'd like to say that, you know, I've got a big handle on it now. I think the main thing in terms of supporting my team was I tried to be really honest and authentic throughout and be truthful about what I did know and what I didn't know. And we certainly talked a lot about how we felt and, you know, and our fears, and really encouraged all that. because I think it's the only way to be, that sometimes, you know, it's okay to be leading people and to say, look, you know, please do follow me, but and trust that, you know, one way or another we'll get through it together. But yeah, I can't say that I'd really want to experience the past year again. We're coming out the other side. I'm sure there are further challenges to have, but yeah, for me, it's possibly been the most anxious year of my entire career, which has now spanned for 40 years. So I'd prefer not to have a repeat. Yeah, I don't think I can add anything to that now, so I'll finish on that note. Thanks for listening.
Susan, thank you, and thank you for sharing some of your honest reflections. I'm going to move us on now, and I'd really like to welcome Lisa Rowlinson-Brown, People Director of Symingtons. Over to you. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for that introduction. Also, thank you for inviting me to speak today. So I'm the People Director of Symingtons. We're a food manufacturing company based in Leeds. We have 2 locations in Leeds, one in Bradford and then one in Consett, which is in County Durham. And we employ around 1,000 people across all of their locations. 2/3 of our workforce are operational colleagues. So the majority of our workforce have continued to work as normal in very exceptional circumstances over the course of the past 12 months. And I actually reflected earlier on this week about our journey over the past 12 months. It's actually 12 months to the day today since we had our very first positive coronavirus case at Symingtons across our group of companies. And today really marks what has been an exceptional year. It's been exceptional in terms of what we've had to deal with, but I think it's also been exceptional from a personal perspective as we look at our workforce as a whole, and also exceptional in terms of how we've dealt with the changes that have been thrown our way. Never in any time in my career have we had to move on the head of a pin essentially and change our practices and the way that we do things consistently across all parts of our business. So as we reflect, I sit on our board of directors, we spend lots of time thinking around what we can do, what we should do, what we should be focusing on. And I think that as we do reflect, we've taken some key learnings, and those key learnings are the ones I wanted to share with you today. So there's been 3 elements I think that I wanted to talk through with you actually. So one is around the challenges that we've had around engaging our workforce and what our priorities are and continue to be. The second one is what our key learnings have been, and the third is in terms of the long-term implications and what that means for us as a business. And I think as a sort of industry as a whole, working across FMCG. So if I think about our challenges, as I said right at the very beginning of my introduction, we employ 1,000 colleagues across all of our site locations, but 2/3 of them are operational based, and they have had to continue to work during the pandemic. So we've had to work and listen to our colleagues and their concerns. We've furloughed around 40 people, not through a lack of work. We've never had more work to do in terms of the products that we supply, but to really listen to people that have had health conditions, and we've supported them through the job retention scheme on the basis of their health conditions. We've also worked very hard in terms of liaising and consulting with our workforce to provide industry-leading COVID secure workplaces, and we're very proud that we've invested heavily in terms of the safety and engagement aspects of liaising with our workforce and implementing things that not only are required from a safety perspective, but also things that make them feel safe. So that's one of the key challenges that we've had, is really enabling that focus to be made across all parts of the business around really engaging with our workforce and the investment that's needed to be made in terms of engagement. So we've invested in a system which is an application-based system to enable us to communicate with all of our workforce at exactly the same time. So whether people are operational based or whether they're now working from home, everyone has been impacted, had to change the way that they do things. So being able to really reach out to them all at exactly the same time with the same message of thanks or well-being, sharing learnings that we've had has been absolutely invaluable. And a project that should have taken 6 to 8 months to implement, we did within the space of 2 or 3 months. So as an organisation, that's been a challenge, but something that we've absolutely all put ourselves behind to make sure that it works. In terms of learnings, the previous speaker, I think, really in a positive way conveyed some of the learnings that we've had, and I'll share the key three things that I think have been our key learnings and things that we'll take into the future. And these are all around authenticity and leadership style. So one is empathy. I think there has never been a time as a nation that we've as a human race been leveled the way that we have. We have all had to deal with very similar concerns, very similar worries, anxieties, and I think just bringing us all down to that human level and leading with empathy and that whole space of we're all going through this together, and yeah, we may not always have the answers, but come with us, followers, we'll do our very best and we'll always have you and your well-being absolutely central to what we do, and we'll consult with you. I think that that's been a very key aspect, and something that I have to say some leaders have felt easier to do than others. So we as a people function have really put ourselves behind engaging with leaders around that authentic space, and it's okay to show that vulnerability, because none of us have ever had to lead through a pandemic before, so it's okay if you don't have all the answers. So I think that's one key aspect is empathy. And then just talking about authenticity, so we have sent out regular communications. I've written them, our CEO has written them. We've been very authentic in terms of our style. So this has not been around a corporate culture of sharing things that aren't personal experiences. This has been around, we hear you, we understand, we feel exactly the same as you're feeling, and we'll do everything that we can to ensure that you feel safe, that you feel comforted, and that you feel listened to, and sharing our own personal experiences. So I have 2 small children, so certainly sharing, I hear and understand where you have concerns around homeschooling, the mental well-being of your children. I understand that because I'm a mum myself. But I'm also the director of a business that employs 1,000 people, so being able to really share that empathy, and I'm going through exactly the same as what you are. Let's just go through this together, I think has been a really powerful thing. And sharing on our Engage platform things that are personal. So really sharing, I share pictures of my children, pictures of when I've been chairing a meeting and my 5-year-old has been sat next to me. Those have been things that people really have engaged with, and have felt comfortable to share their own stories as well. When I'm sat on a Zoom call, my children are at school today, but when I'm sat on a Zoom call and my 10-year-old comes in asking if I can help them with their fractions, that is normal, has been normal for all of us this past 12 months. And I think for me to share my experiences as a director of the business and as the head of the people function, that enables other people to feel safe and have lower levels of anxiety when they have to deal with the same things and those same sort of interruptions. So yeah, I think having that authenticity is something that has not only helped us this last 12 months, but will help us on a ongoing basis and really learn. I've learned more about my team this last 12 months than I would have ever done sat within the confines of an office. So I think really taking that authenticity and the personal element of what we do is absolutely a key thing for us, and being consistent. So we've sent out at the very beginning of the pandemic, we sent out comms via our platform 2 or 3 times a week, even if it was just to say we hear you, we feel you, we know this is tough, let's just work through this together, and being, as I say, consistent and authentic. even if we've not had anything or any clear messages to say, just to learn and share those experiences, and being consistent has absolutely been key for us. And finally, in terms of the long-term implications and the learnings that we have that will absolutely take us forward into the future. So absolutely kindness has been a central leadership skill, and an essential part of the way that we do things, and our leadership competencies is absolutely something that we commit to. So we have recently relaunched our values, and one of the key branded taglines of that is powered by kindness. We try to do things as we say, in a really authentic way. And kindness for me and for our CEO and the other members of our board is absolutely central to the way that we do things. Doing the right thing is one of our core values, and central and absolutely underpinning that is empathy, kindness, and really listening to our colleagues and the way that we want to lead them as an organisation is absolutely underpinned by that kindness culture. There's also the element of I think giving. Even though it comes natural to me, it comes natural to other members of the leadership team in terms of that kindness piece. There is a bit of work that we have to do in terms of recognising that this is a strategically important part of what we do. Being kind isn't just about doing the right thing. It isn't a quote unquote soft people skill. This is really something that our employees expect, and it's something that as a culture we absolutely expect to underpin the way that we do things. So our employees will remember how we've treated them during this pandemic, and treated them with kindness, empathy and understanding is absolutely, when we think about our legacy, what we want to be remembered for as a board and as a director of the business. So the last thing that I would leave you with, because I'm just conscious of time, and is really understanding that we are really all in this together, and having that authentic, true approach to leadership is around recognising that we lead teams of human beings, and recognising that those human beings have gone through a horrendous time. We've had colleagues that have lost not one parent but both parents. We've had colleagues that have lost friends and other relatives, and we have, as a family unit at home, not seen or hugged some of our family for 12 months. That is not an easy thing to go through as a human being when we talk about the things that motivate and make us human. So I think really embracing the fact that things are going to be different, understand that they are, and the role that we play as employers and as business leaders in recognising that that is a really powerful leadership skill that we have, is leading and really putting that kindness piece at the centre of our agenda. So with that, thank you for your time, and hopefully we'll have some questions at the end. But thank you for listening.
Thank you, Lisa. That was wonderful. And it was actually not only wonderful to listen to you, but actually see you. You were proper smiling as you were talking about your team and the reflections and how you've worked together. That was brilliant. I'm going to move us on to a video now of Adam Ogilvie, Chief Executive of Meanwood Urban Valley Farm. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Adam Ogilvie. I'm the Chief Executive of Meanwood Valley Urban Farm, which is located, as you can see from this picture, just a mile outside of Leeds city centre. We're a charity set up about 40 years ago to connect people who wouldn't normally get the chance to experience the great outdoors. And over the years, we've worked with many schools, with many young people and adults with learning disabilities. So, in terms of the challenges that we've faced as a result of the pandemic, well, like many organisations, the financial impact of the pandemic has been massive. We estimated that when closed, we lose between £15,000 and £20,000 a month. So at the beginning of the pandemic, I really did wonder whether we would get through to the other side. But thanks to the generosity and kindness of many people across the city and the support of many organisations, including the council, we have managed to survive. And although we have financial challenges going forward, I am optimistic that we'll be here for the long term. Now, another big challenge, and it links into the topic of today's event, is around the mental well-being of the team at the farm. I'm very mindful that it really has impacted on staff, on trustees, on volunteers, and on those who use our services. And there are some who are really struggling. And whilst I can't share their stories, I can say a little bit about how it's affected me. I've been very lucky in that I've been able to go into the farm every day throughout the pandemic. And I know lots of people have been staying home, having to work from home. So I am lucky from that perspective. But even so, as someone who lives on their own, that sense of social isolation at times has been quite overwhelming. Only being able to stay in touch with friends and family via Zoom. It's also probably brought to the fore things that I've lived with all of my life. So imposter syndrome, probably even more present, if I'm honest, that voice in the background. And something else that I've not really spoken about, which is something I've always struggled with, which is food, overeating. That has been a real challenge through lockdown, and something that I recognise I need and am getting help on that now. However, I do have some coping strategies. Being able to walk out in nature is something I love doing, and although I've not been able to walk up any mountains, there are lots of amazing walks in and around Leeds that I've been able to do, as well as binge watching Schitt's Creek and other things on Netflix. So what's the learning from this strange period? I think for us at the farm, it's got to be about the power of conversations. We've been doing something that we didn't do before the pandemic, and that is just sitting down and having our tea break together, having our lunch break together, actually having a lunch break, but sitting down and chatting and having those conversations in a socially distanced way, of course. The power of just having those conversations as a team is just so amazing, really. And I think it's brought to the fore that as an organisation, the mental well-being of the team has got to be a much higher priority. So I'm determined that we'll produce a mental health at work action plan, that we will do mental health first aid training for any staff, trustees and volunteers who want to do it. Mental well-being is really important, and we've got to take it seriously as an organisation. However, some of the things that I'm really proud of that we've been able to do at the farm throughout the pandemic, we have been a haven for volunteers who've been helping us on our market garden to grow food. And I know from speaking to some of the volunteers, it has literally been a lifeline for them, being able to get out, to be out in nature, to be able to do something useful has really helped their mental health. Another thing that we've been doing is running a forest school. It's shut at the moment, but for large periods of time, we've been able to do that for toddlers and for their parents, many of whom have been facing real turmoil, losing their jobs. But you see them in the forest area just playing, and after an hour, literally the anxiety lifts from their shoulders. So that's something I'm really proud of. So I think in conclusion, a big piece of learning is that we've got to be kind to each other, kind to ourselves, kind to each other. And if we do that, I'm hopeful that we will get through this together. And I saw this quote from one of my heroes the other day, Desmond Tutu. Hope is being able to see that there is light despite all of the darkness. I am hopeful that if we're honest about what we're experiencing, and if we stick together, we will get through this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. That was very powerful. And I know myself as a Meanwood lass, how valuable an asset Meanwood Valley Urban Farm is. Thank you. We've got 3 more speakers now before we go to our panel. And I'd like to introduce this next video. This is Emma Jane, from the HR Service Manager, Leeds City Council.
Everybody, my name's Emma Jaye from Leeds City Council, and I lead on staff wellbeing. I'm delighted to be a part of this event, sharing my thoughts on leadership and communication during 2020. I'm going to jump straight into some of the challenges that we faced. The first one was presented by the size and nature of our workforce. We employ over 10,000 colleagues, and they work across a wide range of different occupations. They work different shift patterns, and that can present us with some challenges when trying to communicate out really quickly and consistently. And of course, that was absolutely what we needed to do at the start of the pandemic and throughout the pandemic. The second challenge was all the unknowns back in sort of February, March time, and everybody's unique reaction to change. That can make providing the right kind of support at the right time quite difficult. There was lots of information flying around, and one of my priorities was providing one clear pathway to support. The third challenge then was how to enable human connection at a time when, for most of us, we weren't able to physically get together, yet people were craving that human contact. So what action did we take? Well, first of all, I designed wellbeing pulse surveys. There were 3 over the course of the year. They were a great comms and engagement tool. They gave us an enormous amount of intelligence about how the workforce was feeling, which parts of our wellbeing offer were resonating with people, what was missing, and critically it enabled us to reach those people who were really struggling and offer quick support to them, which we did through direct callback. I mentioned earlier one clear pathway to support. One of the ways in which we did that was to brand our whole wellbeing offer with under Team Leeds Be Well, and we produced a core offer booklet which brought together all those different sources of support, and people really valued that. And different partners across the organisation were fantastic in helping us to circulate that booklet and get it out to everybody. To enable human connection, we used a range of different methods. Our leaders and managers were just absolutely phenomenal in terms of check-ins with their teams. They facilitated that regular contact, bringing teams together. In some cases, they offered daily video check-ins. And of course, they were battling their own personal and professional challenges. But in many cases, they put their team needs absolutely before their own. We worked closely with the staff networks, who provided a whole range of different peer support sessions, such as our How Are You Feeling sessions, and they were incredibly well received. Our mental health first aiders offered a dedicated phone line to provide emotional support, and that was particularly important for those that were shielding. And finally, we tried to use social media as much as we could, and the main site that we used was Facebook. We had a Leeds City Council colleagues Facebook page, which quickly became a virtual staff room, and it was an incredible space for people to come together that might not ordinarily have the chance to do so. People celebrated achievements, they helped one another, they were able to let off steam in a safe and respectful way. They were able to have a bit of a laugh around pets and children's antics, and it was just amazing to see. So overall learning then, things that I'm proud of, I suppose it really struck me the importance of the basics, providing safe spaces for people, listening to people, asking how are you, and genuinely, listening to the answer. I'm really proud of the way we enabled that. Strong, decisive leadership. I was just staggered and blown away by just the compassion that was shown by our leaders and managers right across the council. The way that people connected with the team leads concept, just the caring that was shown by people. It was a complete roller coaster of emotions for everybody. You know, there were times when each of us didn't feel as motivated, we felt down. Everybody supported one another, and I'll never ever forget that. It's hard to do it justice in 5 minutes, but please feel free to contact me at emma.j@leeds.gov.uk. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Emma. And I'm a testament to one of those Facebook followers at Leeds City Council. Pets win prizes on a Monday. Great. But then some very serious messages. And I do know that we did use the Mindful Employer newsletters as well to disseminate to staff. So thank you very much, Emma. Our next guest is Jodie Hill, founder and manager partner at Thrive Law, and also been really instrumental this last year in pushing the This Is Me concept too. So it's over to Jodie, and it's great to have you back, Jodie.
Thank you so much. Oh, wow. It's so good to hear all the amazing work people have done. And I think I certainly share the challenges, despite being actually a really small organisation, only founded 3 years ago. We share very similar challenges in relation to mental health, communication, support. So all of those challenges that I think everybody's feeling, but in different ways, we certainly felt as a small organisation, but also felt it from our clients' perspectives. What we actually do is work with a lot of organisations, helping them through this whole process of uncertainty and how to manage their teams and how to support them. So one of the things that I'm really proud of, what we were able to achieve, is to create our own wellbeing platform to support not only our staff internally around wellbeing, risk assessments and all sorts of different toolkits and guides, but as well as mental health champion training to help build resilience through lockdown. We're actually able to then offer that to our clients and now make it public. So that was something that, you know, as a lawyer, I never thought I'd be creating my own tech, but one of the challenges was actually, how do we access everybody? You know, everyone's at home. How do we keep mental health and well-being at the top of the agenda? And one of the real issues was the fact that organisations were putting it to the bottom of the agenda, mainly in the first lockdown, because of the uncertainty, because we weren't sure about budgets or what was happening. So this was really a way to help people keep the conversation going and ensure that people felt supported, as well as having the correct skill set and training throughout that really difficult time. The other thing that obviously Catherine alluded to that we launched is This Is Me. So I've got one of my green ribbons on here. There is a session tomorrow that I'm going to talk loads about This Is Me, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but essentially it goes back to what Lisa was saying about being authentic and sharing stories. And that's something I'm really passionate about doing. Having had my own breakdown a few years ago before I set my firm up, I really did want the kind of the diversity, inclusion, but particularly mental health, to be at the top of our agenda. And that actually enabled me to navigate quite easily then through some of these really difficult conversations that you might have to have with clients or with staff, and actually just supporting people, because I've been there and I've been through some of those difficult times, but also showing people that by me being open and you know, the fact that I'd had a breakdown a few years ago, that gave a lot of not only my team but some of my clients that confidence to be open themselves. And I can't tell you enough how powerful storytelling is. You know, just seeing people in leadership roles being authentic, being vulnerable, and showing up as their true self is so powerful. And I think, you know, in fact, quite a lot of people in their stories that I've just heard today have actually mentioned the authenticity piece and the vulnerability. And what we see is when leaders do that, their staff engage in a much more positive way in any initiatives that they run. And what you find is that you actually have a much more positive workforce, which is what we need to get out of lockdown. Some of the other things that we actually engaged in and I'm still campaigning around now are wellbeing risk assessments. And I just want to talk really quickly about what they are, how they can help you if you haven't already done them, and how they can help you moving forward with your communication. So I've started a campaign called One Mind. I can share a link if anyone wants to read a bit more about it. But I've been in talks with MPs about how we can get the government to support businesses in conducting what I call a wellbeing risk assessment. But essentially what you're doing is you're reaching out to employees, ideally I would say by using tech, because most of us are home working, and I think the future of the work life that we have will have some home working or remote working in there. And the idea behind it is really to keep the conversation going around mental health and wellbeing, but also to have a really proactive approach. So rather than waiting for someone to go off sick or make reasonable adjustments because they're not performing, we're trying to identify early on what support might they need, what training might they need, do they score in any way that's at risk, and do they need signposting to actual professional support in a medical sense. And so what these assessments do is they allow a deeper understanding from an employer's perspective of their team and their needs, but also really encourage businesses to be really data driven with their wellbeing approaches and mental health support that they're giving individuals, but also the wider team and the kind of the initiatives that they're running. An organisation that we've used that I massively endorse, just because I've seen the benefits in both my team and my clients, is an organisation that has a two-pronged approach. So the employees actually get a self-care report off the back of it when they complete the assessment, and that gives them 3 areas that they can take ownership of in terms of improving their own well-being. And it looks at everything. It's not just, are we stressed? It's, are you eating the right foods? Are you drinking enough water? Are you moving enough? Do you have issues with sleep? All sorts of different things. So we're really looking at a holistic approach to well-being here, but obviously by doing that, really being proactive. The other benefit of this report that they produce is that you're giving some ownership to individuals, and that's actually really important while we're working remotely, because you can't see people taking breaks, you can't see people whether they're moving. So encouraging that self-care is really, really important. The final thing I'd say about the risk assessments is, from a business perspective, is actually really helpful because it's really data driven. So what you get as an organisation is a document that informs you of all the areas that you need to work on from your perspective. So that might be helping with, in fact, one example was one of our, I think it was last year, one of the issues that came out was people were struggling with sleep. Putting free fruit on or yoga is great, but that doesn't necessarily address the problem. So what you can do by using these more data-driven approaches through the wellbeing risk assessments is not only identify any risk to someone's actual mental health or if they're in crisis point, but you can actually really drive some initiatives that actually have a positive impact, which is something that I'm really passionate about doing and moving away from that kind of tick box approach. And I think that actually what it's helped during lockdown is to keep that conversation going and make sure that the D&I and the wellbeing initiatives stay at the top of the agenda, which they really need to be. So anyway, I feel like I've spoken for ages now. So if you have any questions about either the wellbeing stuff or any of the approaches we've taken, I'd be more than happy to take questions on the panel. If anyone has any, I'll speak to you then. Thank you.
Thank you, Jodie. That's brilliant. And some really practical tips around the hows and very much around self-care. That's really, really helpful. And I think all the speakers so far have brought something slightly different. We're nearly at the end of our session where our speakers talk, and then we're going to have a bit of a panel Q&A. So finally, I'd really like to invite Christian Verity, business manager from Colas, which is a construction company. So great. Over to you, Christian. Thank you.
Hiya, my name's Christian Verity and I'm the business manager for Colas in Leeds. I look after all the civil engineering activities out of the Yorkshire division. I currently look after approximately 250 people, either directly or indirectly, running the operations in the Yorkshire area. One of our main clients is Leeds Council, and I'm here today to talk to you about my experiences through COVID-19 over the last year. My first real memory of lockdown is homeschooling, being able to juggle a job like everybody else with kids in the background trying to do their homeschooling. Memories of watching them out playing outside, for taking longer breaks than normal, whilst I set up an office upstairs in my house. So the main focus as a manager was to keep people safe, and that's keep people safe in the office, and on site. And not just our workers, it was members of the public as well, because we do a lot of highways work. So that was a lot of work around risk assessments, ensuring that people had the right PPE in place and the social distancing could be managed. And where it couldn't be managed, where we had guys working adjacent to each other, then appropriate controls like PPE were brought in. I unfortunately contacted COVID-19 whilst I was working, so I was working from home, so that wasn't a pleasant experience, but it really brought it home how easily it could be contacted, as I was in charge of the COVID-19 compliance in the offices and ensuring everybody's safety, and I was one of the first people to get it, but that's life. The key challenges, so the homeschooling was definitely a challenge. Luckily, my girls were quite good at working from home, but setting their schoolwork and the time periods and the breaks was very hard. So obviously for everybody, that's going to be hard. People who work for you, so you've got to take that into account. Just getting people back into a surrounding that they were comfortable with. A lot of people couldn't work from home easily, so I had to make allowances to get them in the office, but keep them safe out of COVID-19 compliant office for them to work in. One of my most proud moment for last year was the fact that we kept working. We kept working a decent productivity on all our sites. So that was a credit to all the people who were working for us on our sites, in our offices. We just kept working and kept that spirit throughout all the bad times. The training courses were difficult, so we had to achieve compliance in terms of certification on sites. People's training lapsed, so there was extensions in some areas, but that was very hard. And now more and more training courses are through Teams, so all the training providers adapt to that as well. The learning I have is through the Teams meetings that we all have day in, day out. It's definitely something which you should embrace. I had a meeting recently which was booked in Sheffield, and it was a Teams meeting, and it just saved the travel, going back and forth to Sheffield, parking up, etc. So there are some positives to come out of this, and that we should take forward into the future. Personal change, myself, I have, like everybody else, I guess, I've done more walking now. I now own a dog, which I take walking quite a lot of the time, and I appreciate the outdoors, the outdoor space. I've found more and more trails around where I live, trails that I didn't know existed. So real appreciation for the outdoors, and I'm just thankful that we're still in a position now where we're still working and we're all keeping safe. So thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you, Christian. That was great. I'm going to now, because it's a bit of an experiment, see how we get on. I'm going to invite all the 6 speakers to come on, and we're going to go through some of the questions that we've been asked, have a bit of a discussion. If you sat watching, maybe stand up and have a little bit of a stretch, and we're going to go into a break a little bit later on. So, and just check, we've got everybody there. We've got Lisa, we've got Adam, we've got Emma, we've got Christian, we've got Susan and Jodie. Okay, so can we have our first question then, please? I think that was going to be shown up on the screen. Or any reflections, really. Question for all the speakers. Do you think the pandemic has blended work life and personal life? And do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? So that's 2 there. So who would like to go first?
I don't mind going. I certainly think that there has been a blurred line. I think working from home has been a real challenge. I think one of the issues has been being able to switch off. I certainly have found personally that's been a real concern, and actually having some clear routines has been really helpful for that. And kind of marking the end and the beginning of the day. I think the first lockdown was a bit easier when it was lighter and you could go out before and after work for a walk and kind of mark the end of your day. But I certainly think it's been a consistent challenge for so many people. And I do think that actually now it's getting a bit lighter, it is a little bit easier, but having that routine or having that switch off point, having a designated space or somewhere else that you can go in your house really does help to actually break the day up, because obviously a lot of people will have done that on a commute to work perhaps, or they will have gone for a walk, and so you're not getting that divide, which I think it mentally can be really challenging. But I do think some positives that have come out of it is that we see people's kids pop up, dogs on the Zoom, and I feel like it's shown a little bit more of a human side to some of the management teams. And certainly I've learned an awful lot about my teams when people have popped on the screens and stuff. So I think there's definitely been a benefit, but I don't think kind of the home working that we're doing now isn't real home working. It's home working in a pandemic. And so I think we still need to remember that.
Yes,
sorry, apologies, I jumped in there. I just wanted to add to that. One of the things that we really looked at was trying to make sure that people were working from home and not living at work, because there's a really fine line between that. And just to Jodie's point there, we've just done a really great project with a trial actually of an app which looks at light diet. It's with a company from Copenhagen, and people have worn these little buttons to see what the light exposure's been, because obviously the pandemic wasn't too bad when I say it wasn't too bad, it wasn't great, but it was worse in the winter time. So we wanted to understand how people were interacting with light, and it's changed the way that people have gone out, exercised and organised the work. So we're planning on and continuing with that. And I think, again, to Jodie's earlier point about the stress risk assessments, we've long mandated team stress risk assessments at Yorkshire Water, and for the last 4 years teams are required to do them, looking at the HSE standards, so that there's a proper understanding of the pressures. Then the manager is expected to feed that up the sort of seniority chain to make sure that things get addressed as they are. So I think moving into working from home has been a great thing for some people. I think it's been an expected benefit for others, and it wasn't quite the nirvana they that they thought it would be. So I think as we come out of this transition time, it's going to be interesting to see how people cope with a hybrid working life.
Any other comments from our panel
Hi, come in,
on that
Catherine.
question? Yes.
Yeah, just totally agree, I suppose, with the two previous speakers, in that I think it's both. Obviously, it's already been mentioned, the fact that it's created challenges around sort of boundary setting, and by that I mean switching off so you're not always on call. Also, I think setting boundaries about, what you're comfortable to share about your personal situation, but also boundaries within your work day. So if you're working from home, and you can find yourself in back-to-back meetings and sort of sedentary from hours on end. And I've certainly had lots of conversations with people to say, look, you're empowered, you have permission to get away from your desk, just go and stand in the garden, walk around the block. And it's amazing how people have struggled in a sense with that. And they're a bit like, really? And you're like, absolutely, and absolutely encourage that within your team. So I say that quite flippantly, but, it's really, really important. Some of those absolutely basic things, like screen breaks. And I've seen people almost like, can I go to the toilet? Some of those real basic things that we just need. So I think, that's quite sad to see on occasion. I think we all have to support each other with that. I think on the flip side, again, completely agree. I think it's allowed teams to bond more than ever before. I think certainly something that springs to my mind is this sense of collective purpose. So when I think of the incredible volunteering effort across the city, which, panelists and people listening to this might have been part of, it's absolutely mind-blowing, what happened at pace. It was just incredible. And then finally, I think it's an obvious point, I suppose, is that it's reminded us all of how sort of precious, physical interactions are with people. I know that many of us that haven't had that are so looking forward, to doing that when we're able to. So yeah, mixed. Thank you.
I think the other thing I would add to, because I agree with what everyone else has just said there, but I think the only other thing that I would add is when we come out of lockdown, whenever that is, in the summertime or whenever, I think it's important to remember that colleagues still need the support beyond that. So we have some colleagues that have been in the working from home bubble, and as Susan said earlier, you know, it's sort of living at work rather than working from home. I think there's a key difference in terms of people's perceptions as to what people are actually doing when they're not in the workplace. We've had a really comprehensive suite of support that we've put into place throughout the pandemic, but we're absolutely committed to ensuring that continues beyond when people are able to come into the offices more frequently. We also have colleagues that are working in operations that are dealing with not quite PTSD, but, you know, sort of like general concerns around the well-being on an ongoing basis. So they've had to come to work because they've had no choice but to come to work, because they work in a factory. They can't do that from the garden shed, you know. So there's been elements of really listening and talking to those people, and as I say, just accepting that will be on an ongoing basis. It doesn't end when we come out of lockdown.
I think just to add to that, like Lisa said, I think I agree with what everybody's saying. My thoughts that the perception at the start of the lockdown, when people were working from home, was that everybody was going to be taking too many breaks. They were going to go out and do what they needed to do and work half a day shift. But it was completely the opposite. People were working more hours, and they were working, instead of working 8-9 hours, they were working up to 12-hour days, myself included. And it was very hard to get out of that. But slowly but surely, everybody started to manage their own workload, or helped to manage their own workload. And one of the little things that I do at the moment, on the Teams calendar, I'll just block out certain hours or certain sections of the day, which is my time. It's my time to either do some work that I have to catch up on, or just to have my own time, because otherwise you become a busy fool.
Yeah, some brilliant comments there. Absolutely, and I think it is important to block some time out for yourself, especially as leaders. When we're telling everybody else to take some time out, we've got to really practice what we preach. I'm going to move us on now to some more questions, because we've got quite a lot coming in now, so that's really great. I'm really glad our audience, which we can't all see each other, I want to just remind you that there are quite a lot of people on the call logging in. We've got people from a whole section of society and businesses, so we're not alone just talking around it. It's a shame we can't see each other, but we can tell that there's lots of questions coming in. So I'm just going to pick I'm going bottom up as a question for Christian, actually. Do you think the pandemic has helped to reduce stigma around mental health, particularly with a predominantly male workforce? And we can all answer that question, but I think that one was a specific one for Christian.
Yeah, it absolutely has. You know, it is a predominantly male industry at the moment, which is getting better and better. But so better and better with more women in the industry. But what we're finding is that because we're talking more, because we've been forced to talk more because of the pandemic, we're actually getting decent feedback from the broad spectrum of the workforce, in terms of, you know, a lot of people just aren't okay, and they're actually talking about it now, which is one of the real benefits. But what we're actually doing at COLAS, we're running an innovation month. One of the focuses being on mental health, where we're speaking to our contractors, our main contractors, the workforce, to come up with ideas for mental health, in terms of what they think would work in the industry. Simple things like just a badge on the arm, which gives information about a certain mental health company for help, or just coming up with ways to help people in their social life. You know, just give them more time off, for instance, or some sort of system just to make them feel better in themselves. So yeah, it's definitely getting better in our industry. because well, it needs to do.
Thank you very much, Christian. Any of our other panel members want to add anything else to that comment, particularly around men in the workplace?
Can I mention something, Catherine?
Yes,
certainly from the farm's perspective, one of the things I mentioned in my speech was around the forest school that we've run throughout a lot of the pandemic, and that has been aimed at parents and toddlers, but a lot of the parents have been coming along are dads, and
yes.
we found that a lot of those dads have been going through really traumatic times and lost their jobs, but being able to come to the farm and to safely play with their kids and interact with other people in nature, it has allowed them to talk about their mental health, and that's been really impactful for them, I know. So yeah, I think men are talking more about mental health now, which is really, really good.
Thank you, Adam. And I think in our virtual goodie bags, I think there is a link to all the businesses and services that are talking today. So if you are particularly interested in Meanwood Valley Farm and being able to share that as a resource to go and get support, it's a different way, isn't it? It's those things that keep us connected. Please do go and check out the link there. So no, that's great, and it's a different slant to that. So thank you. Okay, I've got another question for Emma. How do you think leadership approach has changed at Leeds City Council in response to staff wellbeing focus? Has there been guidance for how leaders should deliver this, or has it happened naturally, Louise?
Okay.
Question.
Yes, great question. Really got me thinking, this one. I think the leadership approach has been enhanced, and I think that everything that's happened has, in the vast majority of cases, resulted in even more trust and connection with our leaders. Like most organisations, I suspect, we have leaders that naturally put well-being at the heart of all their planning and everything that they do. We have others, that ask for support with this. It's not their natural style. We talked about authenticity earlier, didn't we? And being comfortable with sharing our personal sort of feelings, and that's not easy for everybody. So I suppose one of the methods we used, as I mentioned in my video, was to try and connect leaders and managers to share what worked for them. And often there's no more powerful method, is there, than connecting people up. So it's somebody in my, looks like me, talks like me, in my role, understands all my challenges. There can be some great learning in that. And we had something called Manager Share Space that helped. In terms of guidance, we issued weekly communications, but the size of our leadership and management community means there's no uniform response or reaction to any guidance that we issue. So just, I suppose, to put that into context, we have 2,500 middle managers as an example of just one of our cohorts. So as you can imagine, trying to create any kind of uniform method or leadership style or approach is very, very challenging, and I think it'd probably be a bit naive of us to think that we can do that. So what we do instead is we recognise the importance of working with managers to use the style that feels comfortable to them. And again, that's all about that authenticity point again. But at the same time, I think our role in that is to provide lots of resources, support, help, so that in terms of corporate organisation wide products, if you like, they're consistent, everything's in one place, it's very usable, very accessible, and really sort of helps leaders and managers in their role. So I think I mentioned the core wellbeing offer booklet, for example, and we also developed a team wellbeing diagnostic tool to support leaders to have, again, a kind of consistent conversation with teams to look at, what does our approach need to be, and what interventions, do we need if necessary, and so on. So yeah, in summary, I think in terms of change, I think it's developed, it's evolved. I think hopefully, as I say, in vast majority cases, I think it's improved. And yes, I think mixed again. I think there was an element of those natural leaders, you know, that needed very little, probably no support from us, and those that needed a little bit more support. And for me, that's the beauty of, you know, sort of coaching and mentoring schemes, buddying people up, and, you know, using your internal expertise, no matter how big or small your organisation is. I think there's always an opportunity to do that. Hope that helps, Louise.
Thank you, Emma. And again, I think this the culture comes from the top, doesn't it? And I would just like to say, both our leaders, Tom, who you may have have seen speak yesterday at opening our event, Tom Reardon. He's our CEO. He's our mental health champion, and he will talk about his lived experience of mental illness in his family. And I think that sends a real clear message to those of us who may not want to share some of the personal stories, but it is okay not to be okay. And our elected member for Health and Wellbeing, Councillor Charlwood, it has changed now to Councillor Arif, but she was also very instrumental about talking about her illness growing up as a young woman. And I think that's really, really helped sort of challenge some of those sort of nuances around mental illness, and we look to them as leaders, and I think that's really, really helped as well, and helped facilitate putting things in place that Emma has described. So thank you, Emma. Any other comments from the panel before we move on to our next question? There's some great questions.
One thing from me, if that's okay. So I think one of the things that's really important, and I think one of the things that we've covered off within our leadership team, is everyone has mental health every single day. It's not at the point where mental health becomes an issue that we should be putting that support in place. It should just be part of what we do. So I think they're having the sort of check-in that Emma talked about there, the questionnaires that we send out, the pulse surveys that we do, is a really, really good tool to use to establish the feeling at that particular point in time. One of the things that I do within our team sessions is ask around, so if you could score yourself out of 10 today, how would you score yourself? And some days it's a 4 because my daughter's been up all night and I've not had much sleep. Other days it's a 9, other days it's a 10. You know, it's sort of recognising that if you're tired on a particular day, you don't have particularly good mental health. If you're anxious, you don't have, you know, it's around recognising the nuances and the differences around individuals that you're in contact with, or that you lead as part of your team, and understanding that everyone has mental health every single day.
Yeah, with what you were saying about scoring yourself, there's an app that's free that you can use to do that internally. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called the Form Score. So you can create a group and you basically say what your form is and what's contributed to that form. And I found that that's a really good way of obviously, because we're all remote, it's a really nice way because you can see it on the app and you can kind of check in on people who may have scored slightly lower, but you can also then start to see, like, oh, is it always on a Monday, or, you know, start to see some patterns where you're feeling a bit rubbish. So yeah, I really like that idea, and I think normalising the conversations about how we feel is so important as we move forward.
Can I just quickly add, one of the things that we've had huge success with, particularly about sort of emotionally intelligent management styles and empathy and engaging with people, which is more difficult when it's been through Zoom, etc. But we mandated mental health first aid training, the 2-day course, approximately 3-4 years ago now. So we've trained 1,700 people in our business as mental health first aiders, but we also mandated that for managers, so it's not an optional thing for them, because we believe that they must have an understanding of the sorts of things, to your point, Lisa, that everybody's got mental health, and that is on a you know, that equilibrium could be anywhere. So we also used it's quite a simple thing, but before meetings, when I have meetings anyway, we use the wheel of feeling, so that you can say how you're feeling today. You pick the feelings off of it, and I think what it does is it puts some context around, because sometimes things that you may engage with very well or feel more, you know, and able to participating more confidently. But if your mood's been altered by other factors or external factors or whatever, then I think sometimes it just sets the scene about what you're talking about. So it's that kind of thing. And we've used our mental health first aiders. 300 of them volunteered to be listeners in the business across the pandemic, which has been hugely helpful to us, despite the fact that we've had EAPs and the usual things and referral to occupational health. So yeah, I don't think there's any particular way to do it. I think you've got to have a suite and be prepared to try all sorts of things, because we're in different times.
Thank you very much. That's really, really helpful. I've not actually heard of the Wheel of Feeling. I think I know what it is, but we can share all these resources later on.
Yeah,
so that's great. Thank you.
It's just got lots of different emotions on, and you just pick 2 off of it, so that they most reflect how you are. And if you want to expand on why, you can, and if you don't have to. But it just gives other people a base knowledge, at least, of how you're feeling as you're about to interact.
Yeah, and as you say, we're all on that continuum at different times, and I've noticed that sometimes I've been great, I've been able to manage my workload and I'm fine, and then other people at the same time are struggling, and then it's just a very strange time, isn't it, for everybody?
I don't think I've ever been as anxious or as conscious, as I said in my video, of the weight of responsibility of making decisions and hoping you're doing the right thing, and my own personal anxiety, and really to play to Adam's video as well, the imposter syndrome. There were times I just thought I need to leave and get a job in Tesco, or maybe not, but you know what I mean, that I just felt like somebody's going to really see me for what I am now, which is not as good as I think, which has been really difficult to deal with, the whole anxiety. Not helped by being an older person and totally menopausal.
I know, I agree, and thank you for sharing that. I think just about everybody probably on the call can we've all got that imposter syndrome, and it's how we deal with it or how we've dealt with it in the past. So I think that's really, really important to bring today, especially talking about leadership and communication. So thank you very much for that. Right. So we've got a furlough question here, which I think is really useful, because I know that we've got some people on the panel who've had some experience of that. So how have your staff dealt with furlough, and how have you ensured that they still feel valued as team members?
I'll start with this one if you want.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go Christian, and then we'll Susan, and then probably I think Jodie has probably got something to say about that too. So is that okay?
Great, I just wanted to say we didn't follow anybody, so I don't have any comments about that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we have various members of staff on furlough. At the moment, we have 2 operatives on furlough. One's a low loader driver, one's a tanker driver from our Leeds business unit. What it made me realise is that you need to keep the regular contact with the guys on furlough, not just to let them know what's happening in terms of time frame, but just to keep that contact with them. Because what I didn't appreciate personally, but I do now, is that when somebody's not working, they don't have that balance of their life in effect, so they don't have to get up at a certain time, so it's just like the weekend, and then it just merges all into one. And when I spoke to one of the guys recently, I had a real appreciation of that. So it was to ensure you keep that regular contact, and you keep them fully informed, and you have an appreciation of the welfare, but also we have the ability now to, if we've got the potential of a few days work here and there, we can bring them back for that few days work, and then they can go back onto furlough. There's a lot of administration to that, a lot of paperwork, but it's very beneficial to do that, because they want to come back to work. They want to be working in that environment and feel valued. So that's my experience with it so far.
Yeah, I can add to that too. So we have furloughed people, but not due to or any changes or downturn in the volume of work. We've never had a better year from a sales perspective, given the type of products that we manufacture, which we're also very conscious about sort of saying out loud, given the challenges that some businesses have had. But we have had around 40 people that have been furloughed due to health issues. And yeah, to the previous panelists there, you know, we have absolutely prioritised having regular contact with them. We talk about ourselves as a family, even though we have 1,000 employees. We definitely still have family values and the way that we lead and our culture as an organisation. So to keep them connected to that is around what we do with them when they're not in the workplace as much as it is when they are with us. So we've absolutely prioritised having at least bi-weekly calls with everyone that's on furlough, which has been a huge task to undertake. So that's been predominantly done by our people team. But we've also at various intervals connected them with their line manager as well, so that they can have a direct link into what's going on in their specific function. Our engagement platform has been really helpful too. So again, been able to capture various different demographics and groups of people within the company at the same time with the same message, even if it is just to say, you know, we're here for you still. Let us know what we can do to support you. We know it's difficult for you given the isolation that you will feel. We've tailored content to what they've told us about too. So things such as loneliness, isolation, feeling out of control in a situation where you can't, through your health condition, have any contact with anyone, you know. So that's been really difficult for people. We've also enabled them to be contacted to some of the wellbeing initiatives that we've launched. So I think of the Healthy Mind, Healthy Life, which is one of the strands of our wellbeing strategy. On a bi-weekly basis, we send, some of you may be aware of them, but there's a fantastic local business called Lean Lunch, who are based in Leeds. We send welfare packs out through Lean Lunch every 2 weeks to people. So again, not only does that enable them to get some great food and really nutritious food, enables them to be connected to initiatives that happen in the workplace that they haven't been around part of. So yeah, we recognise that we have it's coming to the end of furlough for the majority of those now, given that we've had some people return to the workplace already with schools going back, and then the shield advice due to come to an end at the end of this month. So we're now really again focusing on how we re-engage them back in the workplace again, when some of them have been out for a year. It's going to be like coming back to new business for them. So again, we're going around the loop of engaging them, having regular conversations, and really listening to what their concerns are, and supporting them the absolute best we can do.
Thank you. I just want to bring Jodie in really, really briefly, because we're going to be picking this up later in the week. So Jodie, do you just want to sort of plug what you're going to be talking about and that links to furlough, and then we'll move on to the next questions. I really want to get through these questions. Thank you, panel, so far.
It links more to the vulnerability question that we've had come in. So I actually haven't furloughed any staff. So obviously I've advised in my capacity as a lawyer how to do that, but I can't speak from personal experience what that's been like. I can only echo some of the things that other people have said in terms of what other businesses that I've been advising. But in terms, there's a couple of questions that have come up about vulnerability and how do we do that, and how do you get someone to share a story, and how do you go through that process. And we are doing a session on that tomorrow to help people if you are wanting to identify someone in your business and really not sure where to start. We're doing a session tomorrow at 1:30 for This Is Me, where we'll talk about how you can use the This Is Me campaign. It's a free campaign to basically help you with storytelling, but also have a bit of structure around that and identify the right type of people to share those stories. So for all the questions where people are asking along those lines, if you do want to check that out tomorrow, that's probably the best place to come, because it's a full session just on that.
And there are places still available, as there are on some of the workshops this afternoon. Okay, I'm really aware of time, and we've got just less than 15 minutes remaining before we go into a break. So could we have another question up on the screen, please? There we go. Just as magic. There we go. This is brilliant, isn't it? The pandemic has led to change in our working practices. How do we ensure that it's meaningful in the longer term and not lose sight of learning once restrictions are eased? And I just wondered, Adam, have you got any particularly comments on that? You know, I'm just thinking about the farm going forward, and any thoughts particularly? Sorry, I've picked on you, but I just thought it'd be a nice place to start, really, the farm.
Absolutely, not a problem at all. I think for us, as I think I said in my talk, it is making sure that mental well-being is something that we prioritise going forward. And one of the things I'm really keen to do, and I definitely want to use the wellbeing risk assessment that Jodie mentioned as a start of a 10. But I'm keen that we take something to our board of trustees around mental well-being, so that we get buy-in right from the top of the organisation, and then have a sort of mental well-being action plan that everybody then can feed into. So we're a relatively small team. There's only 13 of us, which in some sense might make it easier to actually develop that, to involve staff in that sort of process. But I think this question is absolutely right. We need to use this as an opportunity and not forget mental well-being once the pandemic is no longer with us, whenever that is. But yeah, I think very much as a start of a 10, it's looking at the risk assessment that Jodie talked about, so that we can just find out what staff are feeling and build on that going forward.
That's that.
Thank you. Anybody else on the panel?
I can speak to this one. Sorry, did I speak over someone? Okay, no, I'll go for it. Yeah, I think this is a really good point, and I think that evaluation is something that, you know, sometimes it can be overlooked in that you know, that desire to get on with the next, and when you know, really strong on delivery. There can be a tendency to be so kind of forward focused that we lose great learning from the past, or we're so busy thinking pandemic over next focus. And I think with this more than ever before, it's really important to, I suppose, recognise the lessons learned, take time to build them into future plans. If you've surveyed your organisation in any way, I think, you know, continue to do that. So pick up on what's going well, what we've learned as a result. I suppose linked to that, I'm really keen on closing the feedback loop. So, you know, what have people been telling you throughout all of this? Have you gone back to them to say, you know, we heard you, this is what we're doing as a result, this is what we're going to continue to do? At the minute, I think there's a real need to allay people's concerns about the future. And of course, we don't all have the answers. But, you know, some people, everybody reacts to this differently, don't they? So some people are very much on the here and now. And, you know, we've had questions that almost like 12 months time. What will it look like? Where will I be? What will I be doing? So everybody's almost somewhere on the spectrum in all of this. And I think it's recognising that there's been lots of talk within the panel about, you know, tools that can support with that culture of, you know, sharing feelings and so on. And I think all of that plays a part in this. But I think the question is great, because it can be something that, you know, we're not always that robust, I think, at building lessons learned into future progress. So great question. And yeah, just a few thoughts from me.
Thank you. And I think it is about, let's keep what's good, and, you know, those lessons learned for future proofing too. Any more comments from the panel? Okay, well, we'll move on to our next question.
We have
oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, go on. Yeah, Susan.
Sorry, I think I dropped out for a minute. I wasn't sure if I was back. We've got a strategic wellbeing group in the that we've had established for quite a while, and we have representatives from different areas of the business come in, and we talk about how we're going to pilot things. And I'm hoping that we're going to gather, some of the best practice that's come out of this time, to look at how we set future plans and develop future wellbeing plans as well.
Thank you. Okay, go on to our next question then. It's just come in. I can read it out. Might not be typed up in time. I think Louise has asked, how can you help create a sense of belonging within the teams working remotely, whilst balancing the amount of time teams are spending on digital platforms and possible digital fatigue?
Good question.
We are going to a break in 8 minutes.
It's a really good question.
I think one of the things that I've done with my team personally, I'll be very brief about this, is simple things like I've given them specific instructions that they've got to take at least an hour a day during the day as a downtime. We've if you're coming back from having leave, which has been a bit surreal because obviously we like to go away and lots of people have been at home doing that, but when they come back for the first day, for example, they're not required to do any work. They've just got to catch up with their emails, look at their e-learning, do that kind of thing, so that you don't feel like you've just been jettisoned back into it. And we've had a lot of team lunches and that kind of thing, where just chatting about other things. So we have a brew Monday every other week, so that we all come together as a wider team to talk about just life, really. Yesterday we talked about someone's extensive whiskey collection, which is going to fund his retirement. I was staggered, actually, to think that a bottle of whiskey could be worth £18,000, but who knew? But just that sort of thing, really, from our point of view.
Really is that human element, isn't it, of what makes us all tick? And who knew? We have who knew?
I think what's been surprising is what I've also learned about people that I had direct access to up close and personal, actually, in real life, and it's surprising what's been revealed about them through these remote platforms as well, in a way that people have taken on different dimensions. And I always think, when you think about employees, people, actually, just people. At the end of the day, there isn't a bit of you that you just bring to work. We are a complete thing all of the time. Expecting someone to be one-dimensional in the workplace, as in, just seeing the work bit, is like expecting someone to buy a house based on liking the colour of the front door. It's what's behind it. It's a whole thing. So I think I'm hoping that what's going to come out of this is people will be viewed in a more holistic, person-centred way, and their interactions will be more bespoke to help them thrive in the best way they can at work.
Yeah, I'll just add to that as well, if that's okay. So yeah, I think it's a brilliant question, probably a great way to end this panel. It's something that lots of businesses will, I'm sure, be pondering at the moment as we look forward to welcoming people back. And there's a couple of pieces for me. I think one is, and I think one of the panelists spoke about this previously, but setting some guide rails in place for working in a digital space. I'm not a great fan as a people professional around really creating a really rigid environment, just because it's not the way that we do things. But I think to give people guide rails in terms of, I think Susan said there, having an hour during the day that we call golden time to go and walk the dog, or sit with your toddler and do some work, or do something that gives you that energy back. So around the sort of theory of not being able to sort of pour out of a half empty or the cup, you have to do things that give you energy. And I think that when we come back to working in the workplace again on a more frequent basis, we're going to make a big deal of it. So really welcoming people back into that space, getting people back into that environment of collaborating, face-to-face, which is the thing that we know people are really missing through pulse surveys that we're doing. Really facilitating that collaborative way of working for our people that are based predominantly at home at the moment. But I have to say, with our operational colleagues, the sense of camaraderie, the way that they're working together has probably never been stronger than it is right now. And I think that's because of the shared sense of we are going through this together, we'll continue to go through this together, as really put a magnifier under the strength of those relationships, and the levels of engagement and contentment and happiness, which is some of our measures from an engagement perspective, have never been higher within operations. And that's taking things back to, as I think Emma said earlier, you know, that real human aspect of we lead humans, we don't lead robots. And I think recognizing that as a really, this is not complicated. These are really basic things that I think going through things this last 12 months has really enabled us to get back to what's really important.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm just going to put one more question up. Hopefully, we'll just ask for some real brief feedback, and it's about communication. How can we provide people reassurance when we are all facing so much uncertainty? And that's something that we can go into break to think about and contemplate before we come back for our next session. But just briefly, any thoughts from the panel?
I think you can involve people in the future planning of the organisation, be really clear about what's coming, what's happening, and give people a voice in the organisation so that they're not thinking, well, what's happening next? Do I still have a job? Is what's happening in the organisation? If they can see a bit of the future and it looks positive, that's something that you can give reassurance on. And it also helps people to feel a bit more empowered in their role. Giving people a voice certainly helps in my organisation with dealing with uncertainty.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think just honesty, good lines of communication, regular forums at differing levels. So just really good, clear, concise information to just make everybody understand exactly which way the company's going. And if there is anything to worry about, then let's get everything on the table and understand how that's going to be mitigated.
Thank you.
I think also it's important to maybe understand and ask them what they are worried about, because sometimes people's focus will be on something that's actually got no chance at all of coming to fruition, so you can put a lot. I think we did our communication very well. Our CEO was amazing, to be fair, but sometimes I think it's the case of we think we've covered off the things that people will be worried about, but actually sometimes the devil's in the detail. So it's actually asking them, what are you scared about? Because it might be that they've got nothing to be scared about, but I would agree that honesty and plenty of it is the actual key thing.
Thank you. I'm gonna call the panel to a close now, just because I'm really aware that it is past, and we're going to go for a 15-minute break, and I'll pick up on a few comments afterwards. But I just would like to thank all 6 panel members. Thank you for bringing your true self here and giving the time to talk about the role you've had in this last year over leadership and communication. So many thanks. And we will be picking up some comments and some links in the thread. I would just really like to encourage everybody to go and get a break, have a stretch, have a drink, and then we'll come back in about 15 minutes. Okay, see you later.